I recently learned how to create a service in a Linux system, and I want to share with you how that works. Now, a service in Linux is a background process that is usually started up when you start your Linux system, and it continuously runs and provides different functionality like network services, Bluetooth services, even cron job services. It provides those functionalities for your system to use. Now, how did I get to learn about services? Well, my problem was that I'm currently working on a live security camera on a Raspberry Pi. I also want to make a video of how I did this. If that's something you'd be interested in, let me know. Now, it's currently dark because the camera is currently dark and I think there is something in front of the camera. But anyways, I have this very simple server running on the Raspberry Pi 5000 port, and because it's connected to my home Wi-Fi, I can open this on my laptop as well on my phone and any device that is connected to the Wi-Fi. But the way I was starting up this camera server before was not very efficient, or might I say it wasn't the right way. Let me explain. What I would usually do when I want to start up this camera server is that I would SSH into the Raspberry Pi. And when I SSH, before I show you something, let me stop the service that is currently running. We'll come back to this command in a second. So if I refresh, yeah, it's not working. So what I'll usually do is I'll SSH into the Raspberry Pi, then I'll go into the camera project, and then I would run the script for the camera. Okay, this is running. And this is serving at the Pi IP address and 5000. Now I can come here, raspberry pi.local 5000, and yes, we have this, it's working. And the problem with this setup is that if I should exit from this session, let's say I close the shell, I close the terminal, I shut down my system, I restart my system, then this server would no longer be available because this server is running in this current terminal session. So once this session closes, then this command will be halted. Now, it's not just if I shut down my system, but also the Raspberry Pi I'm using is a very small Raspberry Pi, the 02W. It doesn't have the most resources, it doesn't have a lot of space, and what I think usually happens is that to save power, after a while, it just disconnects the SSH connection. So I might have this running for, let's say 20, 30 minutes, and then the next time I refresh, this is no longer available because the Raspberry Pi has disconnected from my computer, which means again that this session closes, and so the server is no longer available. Now, just to show you quickly what I mean, let's say I create a new tab here, and now I just close this tab. By closing that session, it closes the server, and now when I refresh, you can see nothing shows here. So now I needed to figure out a way in which I could run the camera server on the Raspberry Pi independently of my computer. I don't want to always have to SSH and start the server. I wanted the server to start, for example, when I just plug the Raspberry Pi to a power supply. I can still manually start the server if I wanted. Let's say I make a change, I can start the server, but I don't want that server to be tied to an SSH connection. And this is where I learned about services. Now, there are different services on your device. So if we go back here again, there are different services on your device, and you can find those services in, I think, user lib systemd system. You can find a bunch of services here. You can see some of them are .service, and some of them are .once or .target.once, and some of them are .target. Now, I'm still trying to get familiar to what exactly is happening here, but let's just focus on services. You can see here we have the SSH service. We also have the SSHD keygen service. We have the cron service, which I imagine is a service that allows you to run cron jobs on your device. Now, these are vendor provided services, and I think they're usually set up when you install a package. But then you can also view some services on etc/systemd/system, and here you can find like admin or custom services. So here, this is where I have my camera service. If I should cut the cam service, you can see I have this very simple configuration file for my service. Here is the unit where you have the metadata, like some information about the service. So here we have the description, and then here we also have that this service should run after the network target service runs. Basically, this line is saying that this service should run after there is a network connection. Then we have the service definition itself here. We have a type of simple, which is the default for simple processes. I want this to run as user D. I want it to run in this directory, which is where the CAM project is, and I want it to execute this script. I want this service to restart always, which means if the service should fail or it just stops for whatever reason, restart it, and we want that restart to happen after 10 seconds. Then we have this last section, which is install, and from what I understand, here you configure things that should happen when you enable the service to run on boot, so that if you just power your Raspberry Pi or your Linux system, it will start on its own. Now this part here defines what target or run level this service should be part of, and multi-user.target, it corresponds to run level 3, which means a non-graphical multi-user environment. Frankly, this doesn't make the most sense to me, but this is what I have learned so far. When you have your service created like this, which you can create by simply doing touch-cam.service and writing all of this. Now, when you have your service like this, first thing you want to do is to reload all your system configurations. And for that, you do systemctl daemon reload. So whatever service has been configured will now be part of the configurations. But then that does not mean your service is going to start already. You need to start your service. So you can do systemctl start. There's also a restart, but let's just do with start, and we want to start the CAM service, and that's going to run the Python script. And when my server is ready, I refresh, I have my security camera now running. And then I can also come here and say stop the service from running, but I'm not going to execute that. Now this still requires manual starting of your service. So if I should disconnect my Raspberry Pi from power supply and I power it up again, this service is not going to run automatically. I still have to come SSH and then run again start CAM. But instead of doing that, I can do systemctl enable CAM, and enable means I want this to start when the system is booted. Now, the first thing I want to do is to list all my running services. So systemctl list units files type of service. I'm going to have a couple of services that are currently running, which is a lot. See, Bluetooth service is running, CAM service is running. But as you can see on CAM service, the state is currently disabled. So when my computer boots, it's not going to load this service. Well, I can run systemctl enable the CAM service. Okay, and now that I have that, if I should list the services again, you can see that the CAM service is now enabled. So if I remove power from my device and put the power back, this is going to run. I don't have to SSH, and I would still have my live server running here.